ruin our Saturday. We got to get into it because it looks like Stephanie White might have another bonehead trick up her sleeve for today's game. I think Stephanie White is already sick.
From the very start,
Clark.
you can see the confidence in his body language. It looks like he's already sure how Saturday night's game will end. The Indiana Fever are playing in Connecticut tonight, June 13th at 6 p.m. Eastern, at Mohegan Sunday. His whole argument comes down to one important question: will Stephanie White let Caitlin Clark play her game, or will her coaching decisions end up hurting the team's chances?
This lady, she's not comfortable with Caitlin Clark running around, freelancing, doing her thing, using a brush to paint that picture. She's not comfortable with that. This lady naturally wants to control the game from the sideline. She wants to play this slow, ugly, puke basketball that's really, really difficult to watch. The way Caitlin plays does not align with how Stephanie White sees the game.
The idea is that White naturally prefers a slower style of basketball, with more structure and control, and that a fast, creative player like Clark doesn't really fit that approach. That's an opinion, not a fact, but it's based on something real. White's Connecticut teams finished first and second in defensive rating in 2023 and 2024, and she built her reputation on disciplined, hard-nosed basketball. So the concern isn't completely unreasonable. The real question is whether she can adjust her system to get the best out of a unique talent like Clark, or if she'll try to make Clark fit a style that limits what makes her special.
I'm telling you right now, you look at the schedule, you look at the record, the Connecticut Sun stink. They're 2-12? This team is garbage. You know what? So was the Chicago Sky, and we should have lost to them. So was the Washington Mystics, and without Caitlin Clark bailing you out, you would have lost to them too. You can't overlook this Connecticut Sun game. It's as simple as that. This can go one of two ways. If Stephanie White gets out of the way, the Indiana Fever, led by Caitlin "the Reason" Clark, will blow the doors off the Connecticut Sun, and this game will be over before
the standings seem to support that view, at least on paper. Connecticut comes into the game with a 2-12 record, sitting at the bottom of the Eastern Conference and looking very different from the strong teams White coached in the past. They are also coming off a loss to the expansion Toronto Tempo. Indiana, meanwhile, is 6-5 and recently accomplished something no team in league history had ever done. So when he says Connecticut can't keep up with Clark and the Fever, the numbers appear to support his argument. But weak teams have upset strong teams all season long, and that's the warning he keeps coming back to. The biggest danger tonight isn't Connecticut's talent level, it's the possibility of underestimating them.
Needs to be running that pick and roll with Caitlin Clark again. That two-man game right there. That two-man game right there is unstoppable. Stockton and Malone. It's unstoppable. Two players with 30-point double-doubles. You see what Olivia Miles and Natasha Howard's doing with the pick and roll, and neither one of them are as good as Caitlin Clark or Aaliyah Boston. Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston just showed Stephanie White what that damn pick and roll looked like.
This is where he stops criticizing and starts talking strategy, and his argument becomes much stronger. He wants the Clark-Boston two-player game to be the main focus of the offense, comparing them to Stockton and Malone. A few nights ago, that comparison didn't seem so unrealistic. On June 11th, Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston both recorded 30-point double-doubles in the same game, becoming the first teammates in WNBA history to do so. Boston finished with a career-high 34 points and 12 rebounds, while Clark added 32 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds. The Fever defeated Chicago 114-106 in overtime, and those 114 points set a new franchise scoring record. So when he says their pick-and-roll combination is nearly impossible to stop, he's not just making a prediction, he's pointing to what happened on the court only 48 hours earlier.
I believe Stephanie White's about to make a boneheaded decision. Stephanie White was spotted refusing to credit Caitlin Clark for a monster 30-point double-double in the locker room. For some reason, Aaliyah Boston, yes, congrats to Aaliyah, she had a career high. She was the only one with a 30-point double-double in Stephanie White's mind.
This is the part that needs a closer look because it's the weakest argument in the entire video. The host claims that White only gave credit to Boston and ignored Clark, as if Clark's performance didn't matter. But there are two major issues with that claim. First, Clark also recorded a 30-point double-double in the same game, which is exactly why the performance was historic. The achievement belonged to both players, not just Boston. Second, White did not ignore Clark in her post-game comments. She described the accomplishment as something that was almost impossible to put into perspective, especially considering how young both players are. So the idea that White refused to give Clark credit makes for a dramatic headline, but it isn't supported by what she actually said. Where the argument becomes much stronger is when it focuses on the basketball itself.
You will be just fine. Number 4, Kelsey Mitchell has got to pass the basketball. Kelsey Mitchell needs to be an off-ball scorer. You can get your 21, 22, 23 points playing off the ball, playing on 3 dribbles or less, cutting on back doors and things like that. And then every once in a while, when we need a late shot clock basket, that's when you could do your little dance or whatever you want to do. We don't need that all game. If you do it once or twice, whatever. But we need Kelsey Mitchell to be an off-ball player. We need you to pass the ball.
This is a strong basketball point and the kind of detail that can actually influence the outcome of a game. Kelsey Mitchell is playing some of the best basketball of her career and is a major reason Indiana has a winning record. The argument isn't that she should be less involved. Instead, it's that she can be even more effective by scoring off cuts, screens, and catch-and-shoot opportunities, rather than handling the ball on every possession. That would allow Clark to keep the offense flowing against a Connecticut team that lacks strong rim protection. Good ball movement can be a powerful weapon. The Fever don't need 3 players taking turns playing one-on-one basketball. They need to play as a connected, attacking team that moves the ball, creates open looks, and puts constant pressure on the defense.
Just stay out of the way, Stephanie. Just stay out of the way. I know you're going back to Connecticut. Don't make it about you on the sideline. Please don't get in your head and make this game about you on the sideline. All you got to do is stay out of Caitlin's way, allow her to run the pick and roll with Aaliyah Boston, and you will beat the crap out of the Connecticut Sun. It is that simple. Don't get no cute ideas, because when you think you have cute ideas, they show themselves to be bad, very bad.
Get down and stay out of the way. That's the entire argument in 4 words. And if you've watched The Fever recently, it's easy to understand why people feel that way. But the reality is more complicated than saying great coaching means simply letting your stars do whatever they want. Stephanie White isn't a coach who got lucky. She's from Indiana, starred at Purdue, played for the Fever, and was part of the franchise's 2012 championship staff. She later coached Connecticut to a 55-25 record over 2 seasons and reached the semifinals both years. She built that success through defense, discipline, and structure, the very qualities some critics now dismiss. So when people say she should just hand the team to Clark and step aside, they're really asking a defense-first coach to abandon the philosophy that made her successful. That's a real challenge without an easy answer. The argument for the fans is strong. This Fever team has already shown how dangerous it can be when Clark is running the show. Clark and Boston recently made WNBA history with matching 30-point double-doubles, and just days earlier Clark hit a game-winning buzzer-beater in Washington. When Indiana plays fast and lets its stars create, it doesn't just win games, it produces historic performances. That's why many people believe the team should lean fully into that style instead of holding it back. But there's also a strong case for White. It's still early in the season, and memorable moments in June don't automatically lead to championships. Defense, execution, and consistency are what matter when the playoffs arrive. Connecticut may have struggled, but they're still professional players competing at home, and talented teams often lose when they underestimate desperate opponents. White's job isn't just to create highlights, it's to build a team that can survive a playoff series. Sometimes that means slowing things down, even when fans want the game played at full speed. It's also unfair to portray White as a coach who lacks passion or clashes with Clark's competitive spirit. During the Chicago game, both White and Clark received technical fouls within minutes of each other, showing how emotionally invested they both were. That's not the behavior of a detached coach. It's the behavior of someone fully engaged in the fight alongside her players. The idea that she's cold, controlling, or threatened by her star guard doesn't really fit the evidence. There's another layer to this story as well. The game is being played in Connecticut, where White recently coached. Returning to a place that meant a lot to her can create extra emotions and extra pressure. The risk isn't that she won't care enough. The risk is that she might care too much and try to manage every detail. That's a very human challenge for any coach returning to a former home. When you put everything together, this becomes a fascinating battle of philosophies. On one side is a record-breaking backcourt and a fan base demanding more freedom for its stars. On the other is a proven coach who believes defense, structure, and discipline are necessary for long-term success. The truth may be somewhere in the middle. Clark should have the freedom to lead the offense, but White's coaching instincts aren't automatically the problem many people make them out to be. The real question is whether Indiana can balance both approaches and become the best version of itself.